Oh, wait, I would like to pause that.
Thanks, PETA. And PETA's sticking around. I'm not going to let her off the hook here. She knows a lot about this, and she's the magic behind the magic. So she's the one that puts this on, does all the outreach and all the organization, and she does an awesome job. So there, I'm embarrassing you. How's that? Okay, so this is a concept that we're trying to get across today, and our belief is that you cannot have cybersecurity without a mature IT management model. And I'll get to all of that. In fact, let me show you the agenda here. So first, I'm going to talk a little about us, just because, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes, just so that you know, we might know what we're talking about. And then I'm going to do a presentation. And PETA, we're going to try to talk about 5 different or 6 different things and kind of mold them into our premise that you can't have cyber without IT maturity. So that's kind of a hard thing to do. And anyways, PETA's going to keep me on board to make sure that this is coming out and it's going to be clear. So we're going to talk about cybersecurity very briefly. We've covered that and covered it and covered it. So, but it needs to be in here, obviously. And so then we have a concept we call functional versus technical support. And I'll explain that. We have another concept we call big I, little t. And third is our Picasso Man Syndrome. Then I'll get into what the IT maturity model is, and it'll hopefully at that point in time make some sense. And we'll talk about how you can accomplish that with the personnel that you already have. And then what anytime questions are welcome. So the first thing I want to say is what our motivation is. We do these webinars and we do free services, free consultations, because we believe that it's a duty of all businesses to be secure. You know, with the world events and what's going on and all the threat actors out there, we just really want to be evangelists to everyone and to help people in all of our business community be safe. So, and to show that we practice what we preach, we're actually MSP Overwatch certified, which is a TISC 2020 certification. And you may not think about this, but if you use an outside IT firm, you need to be sure that they're practicing what they preach, because they obviously have access to all of your systems and all the systems of their clients. So hackers are targeting MSPs now. There have been a number of security briefs on that from the government. So I just want to let you know that we're a secure culture. All right. So briefly on cybersecurity, everybody knows this, that you need solutions for cybersecurity. You need to detect and block threats. You need to defend your assets and your information. You need to not put a strain on your current resources, because if you do, you could get behind on what you're supposed to do for security. So anyway, you got to protect from breaches and keep your information safe. So, and it depends on your business, of course, as to how much this is going to cost, how much resources you put into this. But I just want to point that out, that everybody knows about cybersecurity, but we'll just talk about it briefly. But here's some things about staffing for cyber. Cyber talent is really expensive. Most companies cannot compete with all of the new cybersecurity companies that are out there that, sell all of the products. I mean, that's where the talent's going. So, and, good cyber talent, they can make $150,000 to $250,000 a year. So, you got to think about that. The other thing is that the security tools that go on your network can cost between $20 and $50 per user per month. And, I can go into that in a little more detail later, but it's like you need antivirus, you need endpoint detection, you need to manage SOC, you need phishing, all these things are monthly prices per user. So they start to add up. And like home security, you can't do it yourself anymore. A lot of people think that they can, but it's like, you can't protect your house without an alarm system, and that alarm system needs to be connected to, 24/7 security place. So the other thing about cyber is it's really evolving at a fast pace. We have to really, really watch it. I mean, I get so many alerts from so many news services, and PETA, you do too, right? You're kind of plugged into the whole cyber thing. So I just want to make the point that cyber is important, and how you get to that point of being secure requires people as well. Not only do you need someone to react to the alarms, you need an alarm system. So you need both the system and people. So how do you do that? So moving on. Our first concept, actually, I think I have this out of order, but from the table of contents, but we have a concept that we call big I, little t. And let me explain it. It's like, it used to be that you had to really worry about the technology and not as much about the information. So now I want to talk about some of the trends that we've had here recently. Everybody knows we've had COVID, right? Everybody knows that servers are moving to the cloud. Most everybody is on Office 365 instead of having an Exchange server in the closet. We have wireless everywhere now. Not so many wires, not so many switches that plug into the wires. Applications are on the cloud, accounting systems, whatever systems you use, people have moved those to the cloud. We have now a ratio of 3-to-1 laptops when you talk about computers. So remember the days when you had a technician who had to open your computer and climb under your desk and put a new graphics card in or memory or something like that. That's just not happening anymore. Also, we have mobile apps. Some people don't even have computers. And remote control. Everybody knows that the computer guys can take over your desktop at any point in time to work through things. So you don't really need that person who's the all-around PC guy to come help people all the time. So those things are different today than they were 3 or 4 years ago. So what does this mean for staffing your IT people? So we don't have as much need for network engineering. We don't have to have the guy who can rack and stack a server, upgrade the server with memory, all those kinds of things, because the servers are in the cloud. On-site user support's really not that necessary anymore. As I said, with the remote control. Internal projects, you don't have to upgrade Exchange anymore. You don't have to upgrade your Windows. All these things are done in the cloud automatically for you, right? You don't have to maintain a server closet. It's like, that's what engineers did. That's what the techies did. I joke around and say that you don't need screwdrivers anymore. I remember, carrying a screwdriver around everywhere I went because I needed it. And upgrades. It's just the upgrades are happening automatically because everybody's kind of in the cloud now. So what does that mean for how you staff? So, a lot of trends in the business applications, are important to think about. Like most companies underutilize Office 365. I know companies that don't use Teams for anything other than what we're doing here today. But there are all kinds of integrations with SharePoint, et cetera. Business intelligence, cloud data integrations. If you got an accounting system and a customer system, they're both in the cloud, how do you integrate those? There are a lot of ways you can do that now, and your PC staff or your technical staff should be able to do that. We've got cyber crimes. We have a lot of freelancing going on, so you can get specific talent on a contract basis, and we have a lot of regulations we didn't have 2 or 3 years ago. So what this means is that we need training for employees to utilize the software you already have. We need people who can manipulate data, like I said, with these integrations, be able to write reports, get people timely information. I'll get to this a little later, but you need highly specific technical skills. Freelancing is a good way to do that. Application integration, I've mentioned that. And also there's a key, point here that we've got to have data privacy. And if I think there are like 23 states now that have very specific laws and penalties if your data gets out. And that's a new thing. So what I mean by big I, little t has to do with functional versus technical support. And I apologize for this slide. And if anybody wants to step, just let me know or let PETA know. But really what it means is that functional support is how you develop all of your policies, how you help people get their job done, basically. And that's what's in this list, and people need help. It's like you don't have to be a techie. You can be somebody who does training, etc., helps people with the business applications that they have. Technical support, on the other side, is where you focus on technology. And that's where you have to know the details and the ins and outs of servers and internet and all of those kinds of things. So we like to separate this between functional and technical. And functional focuses on the information, where technical focuses on the technology. So I think when you're staffing, you really have to understand this. And as I said in a previous slide, I think that we're moving more towards big I with information and little t. In the past, we had little I and big T, because we're building the networks, we were doing wiring, we were building closets, we were racking and mounting servers. But that's behind us. So now is the time to start focusing on the information. So PETA, did that make sense? I think it's a
Yeah, it does make sense. And, like you said, this is just a trend that we're seeing across the board. We have conversations all the time with other, service providers, and they're seeing the same thing. The way to make the most of your technology investment, and I'm saying technology, the way to make the most of that investment now is not so much on the hard items. It's the planning and the strategy behind it all, and that information and how you're going to really see the return on that investment. And it goes beyond the server stacks and all of that. It's this information piece, which I think you, Brian, do a really good job of explaining what that means, because I think if you're in the industry, it's like, oh, everybody knows this, but that's that's not really the case. And so really communicating how the industry has evolved, from just, you call the tech guy and he comes to replace, your outdated systems, to how to really get that return on your investment by focusing on the information and the strategy really behind your technology, and how you're going to use it to make your business more secure and better.
Right. Very well said. Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to a new concept. And this has really been popular, and especially on our blogs. And it's a concept we call the Picasso Man. So who's the Picasso Man? So he has a lot of different faces, and you're not sure how many arms, and he's trying to be a whole lot of people in one. And the reason we use that as a metaphor is because, in a small company, a company between, let's say, 50 and 150 people, the IT guys, they have to be 5% CIO, 10% IT director, part admin, part engineer, part help desk, part analyst. And that was 3 years ago. Now with cybersecurity, you've got to throw that in there. So how do you do that? How do you get all of these things out of a small staff? We're seeing a 100-person company having 2 people. And it's like, how do you get all of these skills out of 2 people? So that's a concept that we have. We actually have puzzles made. So with the Picasso Man, so if you'd like a puzzle, just hit Pete up. I think we can throw out a few, right? So that's the Picasso Man. So now I want to get to the whole concept of an IT maturity model, right? So we've talked about what needs to be done. We've talked about the people that you have, or the people you might want to have. So how do they all work together to provide the kind of service that you need? You know, it's called the IT maturity model. And this isn't something that we made up. In fact, there's so much consensus from all the, you know, the big wig consultants out there, the certification services, the process consultants. It's really interesting that all of them have 5 levels of the IT maturity model. And if you Google that, you'll see what I mean. And they all basically have they have different wording in the different levels, but it's all the same. So the whole idea is that you need to move from being reactive to strategic, and being proactive is the most important step that you can take. Once you get to proactive, then you can really move forward. So if you imagine with cybersecurity, you can't be reactive. It's too late, right? You have to at least be proactive, and it'd be great if you are actually strategic, you know, protected. You have, you know, a moat. You have the castle walls. You have the castle. You have the keep and the tower. You know, then you can be pretty strategic. But if you're down here, you know, without all those protections and reacting to cyber crimes, you'll never get it done. So, oops, excuse me, and risk level. You have a very high risk level when you're reactive, and you have a very low risk when you finally get to be strategic. And I'm not making this up. Like I said, that's exactly what you'll see if you Google this term. And it's true for small companies, and it's true for big companies. So how does this relate to cybersecurity and being protected? So I'm going to take a minute and tell you how we do it, how we take a company from being sort of reactive and haphazard and overwhelmed to having cybersecurity and an IT management maturity model that's at least proactive, hopefully higher and higher over time. So we put somebody on board. The first thing we do is document everything. Then we put in a ticketing workflow that's ironclad. We work on protections. We verify disaster risks. We put in the endpoint detection. We do a security foundation management, and that's where we interact with all the alerts. It's like, if you're not proactive, you know, you've got to figure out who's answering all these alerts, because there are a lot of people out there, they'll buy all the software that they need, like endpoint detection and phishing and all those things. But if you don't have people reacting to the alerts, then what good are they? So, and then you should do a security awareness campaign where you try to trick people into phishing emails and things like that. Vulnerability security assessment. Once you get all of these things in place, then you can really take a look at where you're vulnerable. And once you know that, you can be continually improving month after month after month. And then you can start being strategic. And we do that by providing CIO services that give you a strategic roadmap and a budget moving forward. So as I said, on the IT maturity model, once you get here, you know, you need strategy, you need roadmaps, you need budgeting on a long-term basis, right? Life cycle control of all of your assets. So that's how we do it. The most important thing for companies is to get to zero trust. And I don't know how many people know what that is, but it really just means that the only people that have access to what they absolutely need to have access to. So you'd be surprised. We have a new blog on our site about somebody who had access, former employee who stole, thousands of dollars. It's very common. We come in and there are employees that still have credentials. There are longtime employees who started with the company and had access to everything, but now they have a specific job, but they've never had their rights backed up. So, knowing where your information is and that only the people that absolutely have to have it are the ones that have access to it. All right, so that's the IT management maturity model. What do you think, Peter? Did I get that, or do we? You think we have some questions?
No, I think this does a pretty good job of high level, what that looks like. And to your point about the zero trust, it's basically trust no one. Assume that it's really adopting that super paranoid mentality that, potentially anyone has the capability of getting access to data and using it not for, good purposes. So that, that's as simple as it gets. Trust no one and take action to take action as if you expect anyone at any time to, kind of get in and use your data or your customers' data for nefarious purposes.
Yeah, and that blog post is interesting because this is more common than you think, where people share credentials. Like everybody knows everybody else's passwords, or 3 or 4 people on a particular system use the same password. So that was the case in this situation. So it took them a while of interviewing and calling in, I don't know if they used the feds or whoever they used, but to figure out who actually was logged in at that time, because there were many people who could have been logged in because everybody had the password. And I think it's more common than you think.
It is pretty common. Now, is this the ERP horror story? Is that
Yeah.
the blog?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I'm gonna drop it in the chat.
And we didn't have control over this system, by the way, but we do now. All right, so how do you get there? Because I've been scaring people on, okay, you don't have the resources to do everything because your IT team is stretched too thin. Your IT team probably doesn't have all of the skills like the Picasso Man, and IT people are expensive, etc. So we have a concept we call co-managed IT, or COMIT. And I just want to explain that to you in a way that you can get all of the services you need, all of the skills you need with a small team. So, and this isn't a sales pitch, because a lot of people who look at our webinars aren't even in our markets. So this can be done anywhere with a really good MSP. So your team should be all about employee training, initial troubleshooting. Somebody has a problem, they put in a ticket, you go make sure the trouble, that it's real and it's not just, as we say, a problem between the keyboard and the seat, if you know what I mean. And so you need to maintain policies and procedures that are unique to your business and appropriate. Your data is your data. You need to manage that. So it's really hard to outsource data management. Who gets what data, who gets access to it, because you're in your organization. Maintaining data privacy, same thing. It's like, it's hard for an outsourced company to understand what data is really important and what's just okay. So, I mean, we can help people set up, boundaries, but we don't know one set of data or one set of documents from another. And also with your all the online media. So understanding, what your website's doing, what your if maybe you have a website that is a sells stuff or has a particular function, any of those things that are unique to you online, obviously that's your team that needs to do that. So then what does the outsource team do? Well, I would say cybersecurity is the number one thing, right? They provide the cybersecurity stack, as I mentioned, and manage it. It's like you want your people helping your IT people, helping your business get through the day, having all of the understandings of the peculiar things about your company. The outsource team is much better at sort of taking over the things that these do, right? We call it, keeping the lights on and the doors locked. So we provide VCIO and VCSO services. So that's very expensive for smaller companies to be able to have somebody like that. I mean, a really good security officer can go anywhere for $200,000 or $300,000. So, but you only need a few hours of that person every month or quarter. You need the IT maturity management model. So you may not have it all together, but outsourcing to a company that is a very mature MSP, that's already built in. They've been doing it, and all they're doing is adding you into their processes. I talked about cybersecurity, 24/7 monitoring, patch management. It's like, why in these days would you have your own people worrying about that? The tools to do the patch management are expensive for individual companies. However, when an MSP has many customers, then it becomes much more cost effective. You need remote remediation of issues, which means that you would do initial troubleshooting. And if you can't figure it out, it's above your level of technical expertise, then you have to have somebody and pass those tickets up to somebody else. The onboarding and offboarding, and a lot of people probably don't quite understand that, but we believe that onboarding, when you bring on a new employee, they need to have certain things happen in terms of what they have access to, what their credentials are. All of those things should be done by an outsourced team according to the checklist and standards and policies of your company. Because there are a lot of things that, I mean, here on my remote laptop, it's so shut down that I can't even print in color on my color printer just because, they set that up. That doesn't bother me because I've got more than one computer, but it's those kinds of things down to the nitty gritty of what people need to have and have consistently across, your whole employee base. And then IT vendor management. And this one's really big. You don't want your people hanging on hold on an 800 number with Verizon or with, any of your regular IT vendors. It could be your, I don't know, Salesforce or whatever it is. You need to have somebody managing that and understanding your contracts when they come up for renewal. All of those kinds of things are really done well on an outsourced basis. Peter, did you do this slide?
I didn't, but I did work with the team on, kind of how do we communicate that gray area, visually, how do we communicate that co-managed IT relationship? And again, it comes down to, if you're in the industry, co-managed IT or whatever, your organization calls it is not new to us inside the industry. But, for businesses that are not familiar with that, I think, they think of IT as black or white. You either have an in-source
Right.
team or you have an outsourced team.
Right.
But in truth, it's really a scale, and a lot of companies don't realize that you're able to kind of move the scale just depending on what your needs are as a company, and working with an outsourced team to figure out, okay, I need this, this, and this. Can you come in and do this and work with us to figure out, who on our team is going to do XYZ and who on your team is going to do ABC. That's an option. And I think, just talking to other providers and talking to customers outside of the IT industry, a lot of businesses erroneously believe that if you're going to work with an outsourced IT, you're going to put your inside team out of a job. It's not the case. It's, there's a partnership opportunity there. So.
Right. And the gray area, I don't like to call it the gray area, because once you work together, there's no gray area.
Yeah.
Like Peter said, think the relationships between people and job functions and responsibility has to be very, very clear.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it. So I just want to go to kind of what are the key takeaways. First of all, a proactive and mature IT management model is critical for cybersecurity. You just can't drop balls when it comes to cybersecurity. Everything has to be done on a very regular basis. Alerts, patching, software upgrades, all of those kinds of things have to be done on a very, very set schedule with processes and procedures. Spend more money on the I and less on the T. As you get your technology team starts to change over, and as we all know that a lot of technology people move from company to company trying to get up the ladder. But just remember that you don't need those hard skills, like Peter said, anymore, at least not as much. And those are easily outsourced. So focus on the I. What information do you need in your company? How does that information get disseminated? Who can write reports? Who can do a little more on the soft side? The IT departments, number 3, the IT departments have heavier loads with cybersecurity and the need for specialized skills. So with a Picasso Man, you throw cybersecurity into it, and it's just too much. As we said, you've got to be proactive. So, this cybersecurity people are so expensive. The only way to really get to that, I think, is through outsourcing. So because they're so expensive. And then last, co-managed IT services provide increased security, as we said, expertise, and affordability. So we're very big proponents of partnering with companies and providing IT services. This is kind of a kind of new thinking in our industry. So we just want to point that out and know that you have those kinds of options. Would I miss, Peter, anything?
Well, I think, something that you can add on to that, and you alluded to it earlier on, especially with the Picasso Man, these internal IT teams, especially if it's for kind of a mid-range company, so not super small, but not super large, they have a lot on their plate. And, I've talked to a couple of people who've been on both sides where they, were internal. They started out in their career as, like an internal IT team for a company, and then they moved to, kind of what CIS does, which is coming in and helping. And all of them talk about just the pressure they were under, and just how much was on their plate. Even going on vacation, it would always be in the back of my mind, in the back of their minds, okay, what fire am I coming back to? And so having that external support really takes some of that burden off of the internal IT team, where they're not worried about, like you said, keeping the lights on and keeping the door secure all day, every day. They can, work with someone like CIS to help shoulder that burden and take a vacation once in a while, more than once in years.
I remember being on vacation, at the beach with my family during the summer and getting yelled at for constantly being on a cell phone. It's just no fun. It's not a life. There's no work-life balance, right?
Absolutely. And, if there's someone like a CIS, because things happen, and there could be an emergency when someone's on vacation. If there's a team there that can support while your internal IT team is taking a much needed vacation, then I think that's peace of mind for everybody. Peace of mind for the business, peace of mind for the internal team that's on vacation, that somebody's got their back. So, that's another benefit of that co-managed relationship too.
Yeah, the other thing is, people get sick,
Yeah.
people, like I said, they're very transient sometimes. It's like they can, give you 2 weeks notice, and it's like, oh, who knows all this stuff, how are
Yeah.
we going to make it without? And then, you've got your co-managed outsourced company who has all the documentation, all the policies, all the procedures and everything, so that you can make a smooth transition to a new person.
Yeah.
So that's it. We did have questions, but I don't think anybody's putting any questions in the chat, right?
No, I didn't see any questions. We did have a comment come in. I think this is referring to, the COMITS relationship, allowing your IT guy to crawl under desk, plug in monitors, all those things, which will allow the internal team to focus on the big picture items. Yeah, this is absolutely one of those benefits, allowing the internal team to work with management and work on the core of the company, instead of putting out fires and all these other things that need to happen to keep the business operational.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep. So we do security planning. We'll take a look at if you have compliance requirements. We can do a quick gap analysis to see how you're covered in terms of your cybersecurity. And we're happy to do that for any company, even if you're not in our market. As I said, we're very, very big on being evangelists for cybersecurity for all companies. So there's my contact information, although you have, our email information. You probably see us on LinkedIn. And so, no other questions? I got to do this. I forgot.
What's that?
Oh,
yeah.
There it is. Did it work?
I don't think it worked like it did last time. Do it again. Can you tell we've done a couple of these?
Oh well. Yeah, I'm supposed to be able to drop the mic, right?
Yeah, it wasn't a video this time.
Huh.
That's
all
okay.
right.
We'll get it figured out for next time. We got it.
Okay.
Well, thank you everyone for joining. If you think of any questions after we get off of here, we'll follow up with the recording. Brian will follow up with the slide deck if you need it, but absolutely reach out to Brian and the CIS team if you think of any questions afterwards. And like Brian said, check us out on LinkedIn. If you feel more comfortable reaching out there, that's also an option.
Sounds good. Thanks, Peter.
All right. Thank you everyone for joining. We will see you next time, maybe.